Hey there, I'm Paige Lee, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a backdoor Roth IRA, what it is, if you're eligible to use it, and how to use this strategy. So first of all, what is a backdoor Roth IRA? I know it has a fancy name, but really all this is a way to make Roth contributions even if you are above the income limitations for making a direct Roth IRA contribution. So what do I mean by that? Well, really, we know that we can make Roth IRA contributions of $6,000 a year if we're under 50, or $7,000 a year if we're 50 or older. The government tells us, however, that at a certain income level, depending on if we're single or married filing jointly on our taxes, that we are ineligible to directly contribute to a Roth IRA. So what we're talking about here is a strategy for those of you who are either single and making above $125,000 a year, or those of you married filing jointly who have income over $198,000 per year. This can potentially allow you to get that $6,000 or $7,000 into a Roth IRA, even if your income pushes you into the phase out or above the phase out where you would be ineligible to make these contributions. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we make Roth IRA contributions if our income limits us from making them directly? Well, one key component of this strategy is acknowledging that if we have income that is too high for us to make direct Roth IRA contributions, then our income is also too high to make deductible traditional IRA contributions. And what I mean by that is simply that at a certain level of income, you can no longer make contributions to a traditional IRA on a pre-tax basis, but you can continue to make those contributions after tax. Or essentially, they're called non-deductible IRA contributions. So for example, if you are a single filer and your income is above $140,000 per year, you would not be eligible to make a direct Roth IRA contribution. You would be able to make a traditional IRA contribution of $6,000, but you wouldn't be able to make that pre-tax. You'd have to make that with after-tax, so foregoing the benefit of the tax deduction. Why that is really important is that it comes to play in this strategy and the actual mechanics of how we make a backdoor Roth IRA contribution. So in order to get around the fact that we can't directly contribute to a Roth IRA, what we're going to do is make a non-deductible IRA contribution. So contributing, say, that $6,000 to a traditional IRA, and again, because our income is too high, we're going to be making this with after-tax dollars, so not getting that tax deduction if our income was, say, lower. What we then do is convert that contribution to Roth. So we're doing a Roth conversion and converting that non-deductible IRA contribution to a Roth IRA. And ideally, the sooner we do that, the better to minimize the time that it's sitting in the traditional IRA. We want to get it to the Roth IRA as soon as possible and invested. Seems relatively easy, right? Well, there's one more very key component to this. If you don't have a traditional IRA balance already, SEP IRA, simple IRA, rollover IRA, if you have a zero balance in any sort of traditional IRA format, then this contribution can be made exactly as I just showed you. If you do, however, have a traditional IRA balance, rollover IRA, SEP IRA, simple IRA, now we have pro rata rules kicked in and it becomes more complicated. And it's really important to highlight this because you may not want to make a backdoor Roth IRA contribution if you already have a traditional IRA balance. So I'm going to walk through an example and really show you how the tax impact is very different if we already have a balance in our traditional IRA. So in this example, I'm saying that we have $94,000, just to keep the math simple, in some sort of traditional or rollover IRA, and then $6,000, we are making that non-deductible IRA contribution in the same tax year. The trick here is that we are going to prorate the amount of your IRA that is actually non-deductible. So you don't get to just convert the portion that is non-deductible to your Roth IRA. If that $94,000 balance has been made with pre-tax contributions, we're basically going to be taking that $6,000 that's non-deductible, and then divide that by the total IRA balance, so $100,000. And that tells us that only 6% of your current IRA balance, once we've made that non-deductible contribution, is actually non-taxable. So again, we don't get to just convert the portion that's non-taxable. We have to account for it in the total of your whole IRA balance. And so once we do the math, we would then calculate that of that $6,000, 94% of that actually would be taxable if you converted $6,000 to a Roth IRA that year. Hence, the $5,640 that actually is taxable of that conversion. So again, flashing lights, warning signs. This is a great strategy to use, and it can be really powerful to get additional dollars into a Roth IRA. But you want to be really careful that if you have any traditional IRAs out there, that you use this strategy carefully. I know many people have used this strategy who have had traditional IRA balances, and one way to get around that is by potentially rolling a traditional IRA back into a 401k. If your 401k has decent plan investment options, then that may be worth considering to open up this opportunity to you. All right, thanks for listening. If you're interested in watching a video about the Mega Backdoor Roth 401k, that's another great strategy that you can potentially use if your company offers it. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. Please comment below any topics or areas that you'd love for me to cover in another video. All right, thanks again, and this is Paige Lee.